لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعاني فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا لي لعلهم يرشدون. As always, whenever I start my khutbah, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I find him all in good health and iman. And simultaneously, by asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I ask him once again to give me the strength to speak in front of you with clarity and to give a reminder that's beneficial and effective. And with today's reminder, it's something that is really basic and it's something that we already know. It's in regards to preparation. It's something that I was told as a child, and this is something that I tell my children as a father. Make sure you wake up on time. Make sure you complete your homework the night before. Make sure your clothes are clean. Make sure you pay attention to the teacher when they're teaching you the lesson. For those of us who work in a corporate environment, in order for us to progress, to get ahead, to get a promotion, we have to be prepared. We have to make sure that we know our material. We have to make sure that we get there on time and we leave on time. We make sure that we complete our project. For those of us who are in colleges, when you do a project or when you have your final exam, you don't want to study the night before because the reality is most likely you're going to fail. You want to start studying when the teacher tells you to. So keeping that concept and idea in mind, inshallah ta'ala, Ramadan is about 13 to 12 days away. 13 to 12 days away from us right now. And in order for us to really benefit from Ramadan, because Ramadan is a guest that will come. And if we're prepared, we can gain a lot from it. We can gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. We can gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. We can gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us the ability to go into paradise, or just to simplify it, being the best person that we can be. But in order for us to take advantage of Ramadan, we have to be prepared before Ramadan comes. So here are some of these suggestions, some recommendations that I have for you and including myself, because we are all in need of a reminder. So I start with the youth. Inshallah ta'ala, Ramadan it's going to be happening in summer. So most likely all of you guys won't be having school. Even if you have summer school, it won't be as aggressive. So there's certain things I want you to do right now, or maybe a week from now, so that when Ramadan comes, you'll be mentally prepared. And the things that I'm going to ask you to do are probably going to be very difficult. But just go ahead and listen to me and try to hear me out till the end. For those of you who have smartphones, delete all your apps that have games on it. All of you who have smartphones and have games on it, delete it. For those of you who have Xboxes and PlayStation, and you have a tendency of playing Call of Duty, and having a tendency, now the World Cup started yesterday, you have a tendency of playing FIFA. And I'm not looking down upon you, I'm 36, I still play NBA 2K14, astaghfirullah. I told my wife to hide the game and give it back to me after Ramadan. I don't want any temptation. Along with that, if you have a Netflix app, if you have anything recorded on your DVR, don't view them. If you have a Netflix app on your phone, delete it. Don't boast about during Ramadan, I watch all 5 seasons of Breaking Bad, which makes me awesome. Or for the Amis who love watching the Pakistani, Indian, whatever drama, close the TV. Because in order for you to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going to have to disconnect with the certain things that take away our time. How do you manage that time? If I'm not watching TV, if I'm not watching Xbox, if I'm not watching my favorite movies on Netflix, what should I do? This is what you should do either today or this weekend. Write 5 things that you want to change about yourself in Ramadan. Because the beauty of Ramadan is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He changed the shaitan. And then you get that really, when you evaluate yourself, you get to see how weak you are. And you have 30 days to perfect it. So write 5 things you want to change about yourself. And if you want a role model, if you want to know how you should be, start reading the seerah. Start reading the biography of the Prophet ﷺ. If you're not an avid reader, I'm not. So what do? I go on this website, they have a podcast called Khalaq Institute, and I listen to a 40-minute recording of the Prophet ﷺ. And then every time I hear about his attributes, every time I hear about his character, then I start to think, this man is amazing. And I follow him. And I have that chance to be amazing too. So every time you hear about the Prophet ﷺ, it's going to encourage you. The second thing I want you to do during Ramadan, as a family, start memorizing the Quran. Start memorizing the Quran. Whenever the Khatib, whenever Tarawih starts, and you start listening to the beautiful recitation, there's this encouragement. And you start to think, I want to start memorizing the Quran too. So simplify your goals. If you haven't memorized the last 10 surahs of the Quran, start memorizing it. If you even memorize 1 ayah a day, at the end of Ramadan, you memorize 30 ayahs. And do it as a family. After maybe an hour before iftar, the family sits together, read 1 ayah, wal asr. Read it 3 times by looking, read it 3 times without looking. And each of the family members test each other. And then the next day, learn the next ayah. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Everybody repeat it. And then the next day, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. We memorize the whole surah. SubhanAllah, let me tell you a story because we need to hear stories to encourage us. A friend of mine, Sheikh Noman, he has an institute called Institute of Knowledge and Diamond. And one of the parents, whenever he dropped his son off, which was a full-time memorization program, and his program. So every time a father would drop off his son to that Quran program, he used to sit there for 20 minutes and he would start memorizing. 2 years passed, and after 2 years, he memorized 5 juz, 5 safaras. And then he started to think, I can really do this. I can really memorize the Quran. He was a doctor. He stopped practicing, or he just practiced half of the day, and then the other half of the day he would go in the masjid with his son and he would memorize. 4 years later, alhamdulillah, the father and son both memorized the Quran. We can do it. And Ramadan is that stepping stone for us to encourage it. It's that encouragement. And after every ayah that you memorize, listen to a podcast of what the meaning is. So when you hear the Khatib reciting the Quran and you hear the word Jannah, you're going to like, Allahu Akbar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about paradise. When you hear the word Jahannam, then it's going to cause this fear in your heart. Or the word Akhirah, or Ihsan, or Walidaini, or certain words we know, then it's going to keep us more attentive during Tarawih. And for the elders too, and not just to pick on the young guys, the elders too, I know there's that constant CNN, constant GeoTV or ROI or whatever countries that we come in, we're always aware of what's going on in our country. And we spend hours and hours watching it. What's better than that? Stop watching the TV because you watching it is not going to help them. It's better that you make dua for them. That's more beneficial to them. SubhanAllah. Starting now, because we have about 12 days, start going for Salatul Isha to the masjid. And take your children too. Because right now is around 9:30, 9:45. Build up your tolerance, build up your stamina to go to the masjid. Because what happens, when Ramadan comes about and we're really hyped up, the first 4 or 5 days the masjid is packed. And because people don't have that tolerance or their stamina, after the 5th day, the crowd dies down. You know, alhamdulillah, like the first 10 nights, it's packed. After the middle 10 days of Ramadan, it's empty. And then the Khatam day, everybody shows up. Build up your stamina. Start going for Salatul Isha now. Wake up for Fajr and go to the masjid now. So you can build that stamina. And not only that, but take your children. Alhamdulillah, I was there last Friday at the Islamic Center, West Valley Masjid, and they have such a beautiful environment that encourages you to bring your children. Take them, inshallah ta'ala. The next thing, and this is specifically to my brothers, and I say this with a very heavy heart, in the danger that you might get upset at me, talk to me in the parking lot, but I will be brave and I'll step up. During Ramadan, do not expect your wives to make these epic iftar meals. That are 5 courses, samosas, pakoras, whatever call it. We have special Ramadan food that we wouldn't eat any time of the year, but we eat it during Ramadan. And they happen to be the most oily foods. You eat so much, you haven't fasted, you're fasting the whole day, and then you eat all of this oily food, and then you have the intention of going to the masjid, but because you ate so much, you fall asleep. So don't expect your wives to during the whole day, while they're fasting, they're making these epic meals. I want biryani, shawarma, whatever ethnicity, whatever background that we come from. And then when we eat so much, it defeats the whole purpose of Ramadan. We have to remind ourselves of the Prophet ﷺ sunnah. What did he say? Divide your stomach into 3 or 4 parts. One is with food, one is with water, and leave it a little empty. So after Ramadan, we should be able to lose some weight. It shouldn't be the opposite, that we're gaining weight. Because what happens is when we eat too much, you're going to have a hard time even going to the masjid and waking up for suhoor. So this is an opportunity for us to control our diets too. The Prophet ﷺ was very, very fit, and that's a reminder to us that we should be very, very fit too. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is that opportunity that we get to meet the people from our community. There's friends that I don't meet throughout the whole year, but in Ramadan, I'll see them at the masjid. And what happens is that if we're not disciplined enough, what happens during Ramadan, it just becomes a social event. I know I have, and I'm sure you have been too. You've been getting calls. We have iftar on this Friday. We have a party on this Saturday. We have to go to that party on Sunday. And all it becomes like a party event. And you don't really get to really benefit from what the spiritual effect of Ramadan is. There's nothing wrong. Make sure to go to the masjid for iftar. Make sure to go to the people's houses that you're invited to. But if it defeats the purpose of what Ramadan is, then you have to check yourself. Because what happens, and I'll talk about myself, after Tarawih, all the guys will go meet up and we'll go and eat at a certain place, and it's like 2, 3 o'clock, and you'll have a hard time waiting for Salatul Fajr. Or you're at a friend's party and you've eaten so much that you can't even make it to the masjid. Limit your socializing to an extent that it doesn't affect your ibadah. Because Ramadan, the purpose of Ramadan is for us to reflect. Alhamdulillah, at the time when we're really, really hungry, we should think about how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. That we have so much to be grateful. We open our fridges are packed. And you go around the world, people outside of Ramadan, they don't know when they eat breakfast, they don't know if they're going to have lunch. If they eat lunch, we don't know if they're going to have dinner. SubhanAllah, we have these 3 courses meal. We don't even complete the food, and we tell our wife, throw away the food, I want fresh food tomorrow. So for my sisters, if you made something the night before, don't throw it away, serve it for them for suhoor. And not have these epic, lavish iftar party. Simplify it. The Prophet ﷺ, how did he have iftar? How did he break his fast? It was just a simple date, a glass of milk or a glass of water. That's all it was. And we're putting all this food away. SubhanAllah, I studied in Pakistan 20 years ago. And our principal made sure that we had the best of the best. He used to make sure the kids over there had pizzas, had burgers, and whatever. And even then we complained. They're like, "Mufti Saab, come on, man. This burger doesn't have any cheese in it. Come on, this is not our standard. It's not like In-N-Out." He said, "Come on. We're going to go downstairs. Downstairs is where the local kids read. And a lot of these kids they didn't have any parents. And he said, let me take you into their kitchen. And he took us into their kitchen, and he goes, you see what's in that pot right there? And I said, yes, it's dal, stuck to the wall. It's dal in that pot. He said, Junaid, they eat that for breakfast, they eat that for lunch, and they eat that for dinner. And look at all of them, they're smiling. They show gratitude. We have to teach our children gratitude. If anything, if we get anything out of Ramadan, then we're more grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And last but not least, if we truly take advantage of Ramadan, and what the purpose of Ramadan is that we reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on Laylatul Qadr, what act should I do the most? What act should I do the most? And before completing reading the hadith, I started to assume maybe the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you know what, read the whole Quran tonight. Maybe spend the whole night in worship. But he doesn't say that. What did he say? He said, Aisha, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most beautiful thing about Islam and being a Muslim is that we have a direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Direct connection. The ayah that I recited in this khutbah, Ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'ani. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I immediately respond to the call of the caller. And in order for you to really appreciate that, like for example, if I wanted to talk to President Barack Obama, I doubt it I'll do that. If I wanted to talk to Magic Johnson, I would have to talk to his agent and I'd set up an appointment. Or for those of us whose children have some sort of medical condition, you can't just walk into the doctor's office, you have to set an appointment. He has to look at his calendar. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of all creation, He says what? I immediately respond to the call of the caller, subhanAllah. No waiting list for Allah. Ask Him and He'll give you. Ask Him and He'll give you. For those of us who don't have jobs, make dua during Ramadan. During iftar, don't get caught up what happened with this day. During iftar, maybe 30 minutes every day. Make dua. And these du'as don't have to be in Arabic, it doesn't have to be in Bangla, it doesn't have to be in Urdu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not limited to language. Make dua in any language you want, and He'll listen to you. And something beautiful about dua, and this is specifically to my sisters who have children. Imam Bukhari is probably one of the greatest scholars of our time. He collected so many hadiths. And when he was born blind. When he was born blind. How did he receive his eyesight? His mother made dua for him. SubhanAllah. She was a single mother, and she made dua for her son. And then you're probably thinking, you know what, Junaid, that was 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Let me tell you something current that happened 60 years ago. There's this Imam of Makkah, his name is Adil al-Kabani. And he's African descent. He's the first Imam to be non-Arab. He's from the Persian Gulf. And at the age of 45, he was made of the Haram Sharif, of the Kaaba. And someone asked him, how did you become the Imam of Makkah? He goes, because of my mother. And they're like, what do you mean? He goes, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I was a bad kid. I could break my mom's plates. I could drive her crazy. And every time I used to give her a hard time, she used to say out of anger, she used to say, Ya Allah, make him the Imam of Makkah. Out of anger, she used to say that, Ya Allah, make him the Imam of Makkah. At the age of 45, that's what happens. He's the Imam of Makkah. Don't underestimate the power of dua. If you want something, you have that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to be a better you, make that dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to improve your relationship with your family members, make that dua. There's no middleman. It's just you and Him. Don't underestimate your relationship with Allah. So I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this beautiful month of Ramadan is coming and we take this opportunity. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.